So, in some conversations that I've had with clients recently, a interesting topic has come up in regards to the human's learning process and where they're at in the journey of horsemanship. So, for many people, as they start off with the romantic notion of getting a horse and riding a horse, there are images in their mind, whether it's influenced by Hollywood or maybe childhood experiences or moments that happened where they had this visualization of what it would be like with their horse. And then, as we all know, then there's often reality, which is quite different than what we had envisioned when we started this whole adventure with horses. And I think one of the things that's very hard, at least in the way that I approach horsemanship and the way that I teach my philosophies, is that there is no endpoint. And that kind of goes against most things in Western society that are focused on task accomplishment, that are focused on arriving or mastering, whatever scenario, whether it's climbing a mountain, whether it's a type of sport, whether it's in education, there is this continual, I'll say, carrot on the stick as far as in our learning process that like at some point you will arrive and you will be at the end and then you can go forward. And unfortunately, because I think it often brings out better things in the human, in the journey with our horse, there really is no endpoint. And for me, I like that idea. I like the idea that we can continuously grow, we can continuously evolve. Every single horse I work with teaches me something new. Every single human student that I teach expands how I approach and share and verbalize and communicate. So it's continual growth for me. And I like that. That's exciting. That's stimulating. It encourages me to want to keep refining what it is I'm doing and how I'm doing it, whether it's with horse or human. But for, we'll say, the pleasure rider who, doesn't have all the time in the world, where this isn't your career, where this isn't your livelihood, where you don't have the luxury of being out on the ranch all day, I find there is a frustration, and it's an honest frustration and a very real frustration that comes to light where even if someone winds up with a horse and realizes, okay, I think I need help, whether it's through training or lessons or whatever for horse and human, and they feel like they're progressing. But then the more they've become aware that wherever their initial starting point with that horse was, in their mind initially, where they thought like they were good to go or pretty good to go and they just needed a few things refined, as they're working on that refinement, they're peeling back layers and they start to realize how much more really needs to be addressed between them and their horse. And this is a struggle. This is a really hard struggle because so many people are surrounded by good intentioned, but often pressuring horse friends, horse family, horse whoever, who are focused on, well, you have this new horse, or you have this horse at this certain age, or you have whatever the scenario, and you should be doing X, Y, and Z by this point, or someone else with a horse like that at that age is already doing X, Y, and Z at that point. And so it's this huge pressure because it's this pressure pull because the more we become educated, if our goal is to have quality in the partnership and not just go through the motions and not just create these obedient, shut down, tolerant horses who eventually become defensive. But if the real goal is quality conversations and clear communication and respect towards the horse and what his thoughts and emotions are and addressing them and helping him work through those and then continuing on with whatever is physically being asked of him, we start to realize that the more success we have in the journey and the softer things get and the clearer things get and the more with you the horse gets, how much more there is that we can learn and refine and evolve in the partnership. And so this is hard because this forces many people who has a initial, I'll call it support group for horses, in the sense of people you might ride with at the barn or backcountry horsemen or people you go to competitions with or whoever, whatever that your interest is, where you start to realize you're kind of standing at this fork in the road. And if you are going to choose what is best for you and your horse as far as seeking out the quality Often it means we have to no longer involve ourselves with the original people, influences, whomever that we started off with, because their goals are different than our goals. And this is a real struggle. So there's a struggle in the sense of, okay, I feel like I'm having success and I'm happy for this success, but now I see how much more there is that I want to accomplish with my horse. And yet I'm missing all these pieces now that I'm aware that I'm missing these pieces and I have to address these pieces, and it can become very, very overwhelming. And I'll be honest, sometimes depressing for people. And this is, why I always say everything is a great opportunity, because I truly believe the horse can bring out the best and the worst in the person. And, if we are going to approach our horsemanship journey from a place of empathy and vulnerability within ourselves, and this isn't about being touchy-feely at all, it's about being honest with ourselves. And most people will do everything they can to avoid being honest with themselves, and yet the horse offers you the most honest conversation you will ever have, because he doesn't have an agenda. He doesn't have the ability to play mind games with you or anything else like that. So his feedback is very clear and honest in the moment of what he is experiencing. And as I often say, much of what the horse expresses to us is a reflection of his experience from being with us. So we have to stop and we have to say, well, what is the common denominator? I'm the common denominator. So what am I projecting? What am I thinking? What am I feeling? What am I experiencing? And it's not to psychoanalyze yourself and drive yourself nuts, but until we become honest about maybe issues we've been avoiding of, I know I should be, slowing down and addressing whatever little moments of maybe miscommunication or whatnot. But in my head, I've already had this horse 3 years and I feel like we should be beyond this and da 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 da. And notice where the human story is getting in the way of your horsemanship. Notice where your own self-critique is getting in the way of your horsemanship. Notice where your emotions are taking off in a roller coaster up and down and all over the place. And then stop for a moment and through empathy go, and what is my horse feeling if this is the state I'm operating in? What is my horse responding to if this is the state I'm operating in? And the more that we let go of our expectation, our hopefulness, our demands, and I'm going to be honest, our human greed. So like the minute the horse really tries to consider or searches or offers, many people go, okay, now let's keep going. And they just want to take, as opposed to appreciating a success, however minor it may be. And the interesting thing, of course, sort of the reverse psychology will say, is the less expectations we have, the less demands we have. And I'm not saying you can't have goals. I'm not saying you can't compete. I'm not saying you can't do any of those sort of things. But again, this all comes back to the foundation. Where is the foundation first? So the more solid the foundation is, where we are looking at building on this clear communication and support of the horse and awareness of ourselves, and then we start to build up towards whatever our goals are, it's a completely different experience for horse and human. So, this came up because people will contact me, and especially, through my remote coaching, which I help people all over the world. So I'm not there in person, and they'll say, well, here's my scenarios. What do you suggest? And I will suggest either certain videos or certain things that I've done. And just as a side note, I hate selling myself. I hate making it sound like a sales pitch. I always let people reach out, and if they want to find me and learn and so on, then great. But, I don't ever want to feel like, here's the next greatest solution and buy this magic thing and it'll all be better, because that just, it's very frustrating to see the American public specifically consume that and think that it's going to fix their horse problems, because it doesn't. So a lot of what I offer is really about self-reflection. And so as people are telling me, here is my problem, and I'm giving them specific answers, here's a course or here's a webinar, or here's whatever that I've done that is geared specifically towards addressing this, so many times they will not enroll in it or sign up for it or so on. They'll pick something else, not that they're avoiding, seeking out advice, but they'll pick something that was not recommended, that has nothing to do with whatever they're telling me their initial fear, concern, problem, ongoing, whatever stress is with their horse. And I find that very interesting, because they've reached a point of asking for help, and yet they're still defensive towards truly addressing the root cause of what is majorly contributing to the struggle with their horse. So in this whole journey, as we become more honest with ourselves in our self-awareness, and we peel back the judgment in our awareness, that's a big one. Just because you become aware of your behaviors doesn't mean you need to be self-critical. You're aware of them, and now you can start to change them. That's it. It's just very black and white. You don't need to go into the I shouldn't, or I this, or I that, or I. None of that needs to be in there. Just be aware of what you do, and then you have opportunities to make different decisions in the future. And so this is really hard because I'm not here to play psychologist, psychiatrist, any of those sort of things, and yet so much of the relationship with the horse comes down to where the human brain and human emotion is, and nobody's talking about it. Nobody wants to discuss it. Nobody wants to deal with it. It's not a quick fix. It's not a warm, fuzzy topic. And yet it interferes with so much of what happens between horse and human. And the more that we let go of, I'm going to say, all of this baggage we're bringing to the table and our expectations and our demands and our hopefulness, the better the relationship becomes, because we as humans become available to be present in the moment, just as we want our horse to be present in the moment. So there's a lot in this, and I'd love to hear, your feedback, your thoughts, your experiences. Because like I said, this is not the popular thought. This is not the popular approach, because it really is about self-reflection. It really is about self-honesty without distraction. It doesn't matter what equipment you have. It doesn't matter the bloodlines of your horse. It doesn't matter how much money you spent on your horse. It doesn't matter how many things you've won in the competition arena. If you aren't addressing you and what you're bringing to the table in the equine partnership, at some point, it's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when things are going to fall apart, and that's often where, if people are truly struggling, the answer, unfortunately, is often get a different horse, rather than saying, wait a minute, what did I contribute to all of this unwanted experiences, and how do I take responsibility and learn to make changes within myself? So just some stuff to think about the next time you head out with your horse. Maybe have a little bit of this brewing in the back of your mind, and start to notice your behaviors, start to notice your expectations, start to notice your hurry or your rush or your agenda, start to notice in conversation with horse friends if there's a lot of that, I'll say, challenge, even if it's with good intention, of what did you do? What did you accomplish? Was your horse obedient? What did you win? Those sort of things. And you might take a time out and evaluate if that is the world that you want to be participating in. Thank you for joining me, and I will see you next time.